Hello my dear students, we have been discussing SUVIRA by Paro Anand. So today we will be finishing the remaining portion. Okay, so after the sentence that we read, we came to know that the race started. Okay, and our narrator, she somehow gathered courage because the presence of SUVIRA, especially beside her, it was not very much auspicious according to her. Okay, because people were, especially Deepthi, she told her that SUVIRA was already established as the heroine of that particular show, I mean in the field of sports. So naturally she got a little bit nervous, but at the same time she remembered that uh, her parents were doing a lot for her, for themselves, so she need to fulfill their expectations as well as her own expectations, and she also had achieved the winning position in 800-meter race in Kolkata. So we never know that who is better, SUVIRA or the narrator. So by remembering all these things, she was trying to gather courage, and she decided to give her best. I knew she was closing in on me. I knew that I had got away too early at the start. I hadn't paced myself correctly. We were approaching the 400-meter mark. So almost the 50% distance was about to be crossed, and she somehow realized that in the very beginning she took very high speed. Maybe this is a kind of strategy followed by the athletes, the runners. I'm not very much aware of that because I'm very weak at running. Okay, so she knew that SUVIRA was almost close to her. At first she was leading, then she realized that SUVIRA was coming near. Okay, and they were almost they are going to cross that 400-meter mark. Okay, they are almost near, they crossed near 50% distance. And she also was aware of the fact that in the very beginning, from the very beginning, she took very high speed. Maybe this was not the correct strategy. The crowd went crazy as SUVIRA closed the gap between us. We were running shoulder to shoulder and each was eyeing the other to see who made the first move. This thing we do na. Suppose we are doing a riding competition. Okay. So we look at each other now. Okay, how much he has done, how much I have done, who is going to be the first one. So this thing was going on between them. They were looking at each other to check whether the other one is crossing. Okay. Slow down, I told myself. I started slowing down very imperceptibly. What does it mean? See, in your page, in your own book only, the meaning has been given so subtly as not to be perceived. So, it is not generally perceived. It is so subtle, it is so mild that you cannot perceive it easily. So, she slowed down. Okay, it is also a part of strategy. Okay, so she slowed down but very subtly. It's an old trick in racing. You cut back on pace and your opponent too takes the pressure off herself. What happens? You just slow down and your opponent, what does he or she thinks? What does he or she think? That okay, I think my opponent is going to be a little slow, so I can be a little bit relaxed, and just then maybe you again will take high speed. Maybe this is the strategy. Okay, she says she did, it worked. Means she also, this strategy worked. Uh, she took off the pressure of herself a bit, little bit, but with a wildly enthusiastic crowd egging her on and just 300 meters to go, she began pulling away. But just after that, the crowd was very much they were encouraging Suvira because Suvira was already a star according to them. Okay, and egg on this particular phrase means to encourage someone. They were constantly encouraging Suvira, and Suvira became enthusiastic. And when she saw that only 300 meters of distance was left, she again began pulling away, means moving ahead. Okay. She was in front now, and I had lost the lead that I had maintained for the first half. I hung on though, hanging on to her tail like a worrying dog. I would just lay back a bit, catch my breath, refuel myself and give it my best shot. So her decision was like, okay, I'm a little slow now. I have lost the lead that I maintained in the first half. It's okay. I will save my energy now just for a few seconds. I will refuel myself. I will gather more energy and again I will give it a best start. My gaze traveled down her legs as they pumped their way towards the finish line. Suddenly, while running, the narrator's eyes fell on Suvira's sports shoes. Okay, they were kind of forcing her forward. Okay, I think it was then that I saw her shoes. Brand new ones. See the difference? Brand new ones. Suvira was the old star there, but she had brand new shoes, whereas our narrator, she was totally a newcomer there, but she could not afford, right at that moment, she could not afford any brand new shoes. Her shoes were old. With glistening sharp spikes that sprang forward, shining sharp spikes. From that she could easily realize that those were new. Bit into the track and then sprang forward again like a wild, untamable animal. It was wild. It was not under control. It was just helping her to move forward like wildly. To hold the ground in 1 second, and just in the next second it was forcing her forward. I tried not to think about those spikes. I concentrated instead on my own. While running, so many things were going on inside her head, inside her mind. She thought all those things. She gazed at her legs, she noticed the new spikes, but just after that she realized that no, I should not concentrate on her spikes, rather I should concentrate on mine. Mine are old and blunted, means less sharp. They became less sharp due to random use, through use, but they had experience. Obviously, how did they become blunt? How? Why did they lose their sharpness? Because they were used. They had experience in the field. So our narrator used them while running a lot of times. And yes, my old spikes were used to winning. She used to win in Kolkata. Okay, so those shoes were used to winnings. Surely my good old spikes had some hunger left in them yet. Hunger of what? Food. Yes, food. What is the food here? The first position, the winning position. I was close now, just 20 to 30 meters to go. My old blue spikes had put me on the victory strand often enough. So they are habituated to win in the field of sports. I would take them there this time. Where? On the victory stand. Past those flashy new spikes. Okay, so she is getting determined again that I will beat those flashy, those shining new spikes, and my old blunted spikes, they are habituated to winnings, and again I will lead them to the victory stand. Past the home favorite. Who was the home favorite? Suvira. I surged forward. With great speed she moved forward. Suvira's head swiveled sideways to check how close I was. She turned to check how much distance was there between her and her opponent. Seeing me close in, she stepped on the accelerator, but I was going full steam ahead too. Obviously, when she noticed that yes, my opponent is very much near to me, she obviously took much more, higher speed. But our narrator too took higher speed. She also increased her speed. Suvira, 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 four times it has been repeated. The whole universe reverberated with the name of my worthy opponent. The crowd was taking the name again and again. That kind of echo, that is called reverberated. Okay, we ran together now. Such a suspense. Step for step, stride for stride, the old favorite with new shoes, the newcomer with old ones. Yes, that was my point. This is important. Okay, the tape was within arm's reach now, the finishing tape. I charged towards it, she charged towards it. So things were going on between these two. I could feel my lungs bursting with the effort. It happens now when you run too much. I don't know whether you face it or not. If I run for a few seconds only, I feel that. I could hear her gasping too. So it was so loud that it could be heard by the opponent beside her. Hear her through the roaring pain of effort in my ears. That is a kind of physical feeling that you experience after running or after exercising for such a long period. I ducked my head and breasted the tape. She ducked her head and breasted the tape. I crossed the finish line. She crossed the finish line. The crowd went wild, cheering and chanting, still chanting Suvira's name. So what do you think? Who is the winner? Suvira. Still they were chanting Suvira's name, na? But no, there is a twist. But in between the chanting, there were voices that asked, "Hey, who is that? What's that new girl's name?" Okay, it means she did something because of which some people were talking about her. They were curious about her. And then we were standing there together on the top step of the victory stand, where both of us were used to standing alone. Our narrator also used to stand alone there, the single first. Suvira also used to be the single first, but this time they both they both stood there in the highest stand, okay, in the victory stand. She turned to me and smiled, a friendly, open smile, as though she was genuinely happy. "Well done," she said. "Well run," I said. Then we joined hands and raised them to acknowledge the cheering of our school. My school. The last phrase that is important, my school. From a new school which didn't welcome her, it is not very much correct actually. Which school she was not acquainted with very much became my school for her, quote unquote my school for her. So how was the journey? How did it become my school? I would like to know from you. Okay, this is a very long answer, I know, but I would like to know from you in the live class. And the question answers, most of the answers I will provide on the next day. Maybe we will be meeting after the holiday. So don't worry, we will get time. We will be discussing there and I will provide all these answers on the next day. But today I would like to know from you some explanations, some questions I am having that I would ask you, and I hope you will be able to answer as always. Okay, so bye bye. Any doubt, any query, we will be discussing in the live class only. Bye bye.